Good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at the OpenShift Commons and to be able to share with you our case of hyper-automation in a hybrid multiply cloud, highly efficient. I am Gustavo Fiuza, IT leader at Banco do Brasil, and today I will share this stage with you, along us, Welton Felipe, DevOps engineer at Banco do Brasil. But before we dive into the details of our case, I'd like to bring a bit of context on where and to whom we deliver value as a cloud computing platform. Brazil has a population of 213 million inhabitants distributed about 8.5 million square kilometers. About 100 million Brazilians are economically active, and 89 million have at least one bank account, of which 87 million are our customers. Banco do Brasil is a financial conglomerate composed of multiple companies founded in 1808 through more than 200 years of existence. It has reinvented itself several times. We lead in several segments of the financial market, which position us as the second largest bank in Latin America. And at the same time, we operate with a strong social environment responsibility, which has given us, for the fifth consecutive year, the title of the most sustainable bank in the world, according to the Canadian consulting firm Corporate Knights. Now, let's take a deep dive into our cloud computing platform. We started our journey in mid-2018 using Kubernetes as our container orchestrator. We built a platform that grew fast, and suddenly we had a huge workload. With low granularity set at large silo, all users shared the same production cluster. The process of enabling new nodes allowed for a few customizations. And there was no corporate support, since we were using the community version of Kubernetes. We realized that we had users with different needs, and we should provide our service in a more granular way, supported by a strong automated customizable process with corporate support, in order to continue growing sustainably, delivering more and more value to our customers. And at this point, we chose OpenShift. It remained our choice also in the public cloud through Arrow, due to simplified nodes management by hyper-automation stack using Red-Red operators and better integration with our existing R-based authentication and authorization process compared to using AKS. To detail the shift to this new scenario in a scalable way, I invite Welton Felipe to talk to you.
Hi, first for all, sorry for my Brazilian English. All right, that's a quick overview of your new environment. We are providing the resources needed for each platform, sometimes with dedicated infrastructure and shared management. Sounds good, right? Pretty simple, at least when you look at it. But how do we scale this in a standardized way? Because in this model could mean over 100 of new clusters. It feels almost impossible to manage an environment like that. And that's when two concepts were born for us: capabilities and hyperautomation. So let's try to explain this in a practical way. How does a cluster come to life in our environment? At first, it's born like this, empty, only the masters. All right, but what about everything else? That's what we call the capabilities. So what are they? Capabilities are a versionable feature that fit together like Lego pieces inside a standard cluster. Things like ingress controller, backup component, monitor stack, and even their workload nodes. In other words, everything else. Oh, sorry. Okay. And why versionable? Because in this model, each capability eventually gets its own specialized owner, someone wearing the owner's hat, responsible for its artifacts, charts, documentation, and evolution. Similar to a software lifecycle. All right, but how will we actually deploy these capabilities? With hyperautomation. Hyperautomation is basically environment management driven by metadata. This metadata define which capabilities are enabled or disabled. Simply put, every cluster has a metadata file with specific information about that platform, including which capabilities it needs in the specific version for each one. Behind the scenes, this is starting our infra deployment pipeline. We are talking about Argo CD, application sets, generators, etc. Okay, but when we enable a capability, it might come with one or more processes attached to it. That's what we call quality process. They are transversal, and they run across all capabilities that have any kind of relationship of them. For example, any capability that uses dedicated infra will automatically have some quality process linked to it, like FinOps, ALO process, which I will explain in a bit, and others. So basically, hyperautomation, capabilities, and quality process are what make scalable management possible. All right, but we also said management should be efficient, right? Some of these quality processes are directly related to efficiency. For example, ALO process. ALO comes from the allocation. It's a process that helps us manage capacity and efficiency in two dimensions. The first is the application dimension, directly related to developers. It's about comparing requested resources with their real usage. Here, we focus mainly on CPU and memory. Then, we have the infrastructure dimension. This one is about the slice of infrastructure that each platform receives. So we look at the pool of resources that was provided, then compare it with the sum of all resources allocated by developers. For the infra, the tools are pretty basic. Prometheus and Grafana stack with dashboard and alarms started by thresholds up or down. The cool part is, it's already there when the infra is created, because it's a quality process mandatory in those cases. So it's born with it. Now, when it comes to application, things get a little trickier, and I'll explain that in a bit. Well, here we can see two dashboards. The one at the bottom shows a slice of infra with a huge potential for waste. Almost 97% of resources are idle. These dashboards even gives us insights for better size of the infra. Now, the dashboard on top show the opposite. It shows a slice of infra with a potential risk of a resource shortage. It can stop new deployments and lead to rollout downtime. In both cases, the infra owner is alerted through ITSM integration. Now, take another look at the top dashboard. The high and low number means the infra owner is alert. Infra owner might think, well, yeah, this, a low, high. Well, I just need to add more nodes, right? Not necessarily. The dashboard also shows low efficiency, this. So if we improve the efficiency in the applications, we might solve the allocation problem without adding a single node. But the infra owner might say, man, I've got a lot of applications running here, in hundreds of namespaces. Yeah, we get it, it's not easy. But we can identify and classify the potential offenders. When you click on a slice of infra, it's open another dashboard showing the business area with the biggest potential inefficiency. Then you click on the business area. You get the namespace with the same kind of analysis. Thank you. And finally, click in the namespace. You show the specific kind responsible for the deployments. Now, an important reminder here, this dashboard gives us real-time view of resource. They don't consider seasonality or batch routines that only owners should know about. So yes, it's hard to scale this kind of management because we're not talking about hundreds of namespaces. We talk about thousands. Over 9% of them are inefficient in some way. That's when the recommendations come in. So when we talk about recommendations, we mean a set of initiatives. They share a single source of data. This analysis is done by a specialized management team. They collect metrics from the cluster, store them in database, and use statistical calculation to identify both peak usage and average usage over 30-day windows. With this, we classify the biggest potential offenders. Then we use all this data to feed our internal indicators, like the Cloud Seal. This is our internal cloud metric score. We also show back this information in our IDP tool, make life easier for developers, and connect it with FinOps and GreenOps and other dashboards. Now, this part is very important. I chose my words carefully here, potentially, eventually, recommendation. There were reasons for that. First, we understand that the infra owners and developers should know their slicing infra and application better than anyone. But DevOps, that some aspects are cultural, and there is no magic fix for some problems. So yes, it's really a journal. So, and now the results. At the beginning of the last year, efficiency became one of the IT strategy OKR at the bank. And honestly, that helped a lot. The target was 40% efficiency. So did it work? Yes, thank goodness. We already reached 33% efficiency. This saving was confirmed by FinOps and GreenOps teams and includes both legacy and OpenShift environment, cloud public, on-premise, etc. So yeah, it seems to be working. This one is an example for our FinOps framework. It tracks cost, usage, and optimization actions across the platform. And this one is our GreenOps framework. It focuses on sustainability by measuring and reducing the carbon footprint. And finally, the last screen shows a detailed GreenOps view. It can go really deep, down to each platform, showing energy usage, for example. So together, FinOps and GreenOps close the loop. And that's how we are building scalable, efficient, and responsible cloud journey. Now I will bypass back to Gustavo to show how we are using AI in this journey.
Thanks, Elton. And at this point, you may be wondering, do they not use AI in their cloud platform? Yes, we do. Our first agent is Marvin Bot. It helps us to troubleshooting cloud resources, providing the first service to our user who opens support tickets. And it helps us to defragmenting the nodes by distributing the pods optimally. Our second and most recent AI engine is Delphos, that through a strong integration with our cloud management and monitoring databases, it responds to users in a customized and precise way to their most specific questions. Today, we have a containerized environment with over 140 clusters comprised of more than 7,500 nodes, more than 8,000 production applications, and an average of 3,900 monthly deployments carried out by more than 2,000 developers, enabling more than 900 million business transactions per day. And just one more number. In just 2 weekends, 800 applications were successfully migrated to the public cloud. Thanks to the capabilities, hyper-automation, and OpenShift, the migration was completed with no incidents. On a few days later, the cluster footprint for workloads was reduced by half, enabled by rapid VPA and cluster autoscaler adjustments. I hope you enjoyed it and that our case will help you in your challenges, inspiring them to grow their business with Red Hat OpenShift. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? We have the mic on the left side of the room. Yeah. You can use it and then he'll help.
Hi, guys. So my question is, I see that you have used a lot of self-made tooling for reporting and everything. Do you use any kind of open source projects to generate these green dashboards and things like that? Because it seemed very interesting, like how to get the measurements of power usage, then carbon footprint and everything. Is everything made by yourselves, or did you reuse something that was already part of a community?
Okay. We collect the data with some kind of open source application, like Prometheus collecting the infra data. And we built our own dashboard and expose it by some kind of data visualization softwares like Spotify and other ones.